Hey folks, it's Lauren from Snowy's here with the Summit Ascent Women's Down Sleeping Bag.
Hit it.
This backpacking and hiking sleeping bag comes in 2 warmth ratings with 750 plus fill power goose down with a spacious mummy women's fit. Hold up fam, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any awesome content on the Snowy's channel. Let's get into it. So the Ascent Women's is the 2024 rework of the classic altitude bag, which you might already be familiar with. It was an already fantastic bag, so there have been some minor changes, but nothing too drastic. But obviously the main one here being the color and the naming conventions that have changed, which is now the Ascent Women's specifically. So we'll run through a little bit more of the features later, but it comes in 2 different comfort temperatures. So we've got the -1 and we've also got the -9. And of those 2, the bags come in both a regular length and a long length. We've got 2 regular lengths here. If you want to see a direct comparison between the 2, check out our Trek Women's video where we did have a long and a regular sitting on top of each other. But the regular is 181 centimeters long externally, and that's going to suit users up to around about 170 centimeters in height. And the long bag is 196 centimeters externally, suiting users up to around about 185 centimeters tall. The width of the bag is going to be slightly different as well. In the regular, it's 72.5 centimeters, whereas in the long, it gives you a little bit extra with 77.5 centimeters. So when you get your bag, it will come in this storage cube, which is ideal because you don't want to keep your down bag in its compression sack long term because it does affect the loft of the insulation. And the weight of the bags range anywhere between 1.1 for the -1 regular right through to around about 1.4 kilos in the long version of the -9. So in your storage bag, you are going to have, or your storage cube, I should say, you're going to have your swing tag, which gives you a bit more information about the sleeping bag and the free flow zip system. And you get this nifty little mini Summit carabiner with that as well. You also get your down certification or your certificate, and that's really cool because that just gives you all the specs for the testing on the individual batch of down that's in your particular sleeping bag. So that obviously is going to vary from bag to bag depending on the actual batch, but there is a minimum standard that will be met there. And we also have the compression sack as well for when you're actually off doing your adventuring. So we'll run through this a little bit later on. Now the materials of the sleeping bag on the outside is a 20 denier nylon, and that's the shell and the lining as well. So you can see there's like a bit of a slight ripstop weave woven on the outer material here, and that's not on the inner. But the material itself is really, you can't really pick it up on the camera here, but it's really soft and silky. It doesn't sort of feel synthetic at all. It's definitely not slippery, but it just has this really sort of lush quality to it. Certainly feels really nice against the skin. So the insulation in the Ascent Women's is a 750 plus fill power goose down. So as you can see, the bag is like a cloud. It's so like soft and light and fluffy, like marshmallowy almost. And that's realistically down to how the baffles have been constructed here. So there is a 3D construction within the baffle itself, which means that the outer shell and the lining are not actually joined. There's an internal wall with the baffles, which means that they can stay in this really lovely big 3D shape, which maximizes the loft, and it also reduces any cold spots where the 2 materials might meet and there's no insulation, and sort of cold can penetrate through those sections there. So that's absolutely offset with the bag here. We've also got these vertical baffles up the top, which keep the insulation exactly where you want it to be over your body, and it's not sort of pushing off to the side as you toss and turn. And moving down to the bottom half of the bag, we've got some much larger vertical baffles here, and they're really holding quite a lot of loft as well, as you can see, and right the way down to that 3D foot box, which has a nice big panel, sort of baffle panel down here on the foot as well. The material has been treated with a PFC-free DWR, which is a water repellency coating, which helps to keep your down nice and dry to maximize its efficiency when you're out. And that's, you know, potentially, obviously, you're not going to have your bag in rain or anything like that, but humidity, condensation, things like that, the DWR coating should see you fairly right. Now, in terms of the features of the bag, we have here next to the zip section, you can see this big draft tube. Now, that draft tube runs along every single section where we have a zip, and that's down-filled. And that comes up across the front here with this scallop or shaped draft tube collar here. And that's all the way along the top here as well. Now on the hood and along the front, we've got these soft touch adjustment points here, which cinch in that hood space. And the hood itself is like a nice, as you can see, it's a 3D construction hood. So there's lots of really spacious room there without sort of crushing or compressing the down. And you will be able to also fit a Sea to Summit regular sized pillow in there without too many issues. So the top of the zip sections here, we've also got these little press studs. So these will help you to utilize your free flow zip system a bit better, which I'll show you more in just a moment. But it also keeps the top two sections of your sleeping bag to stop your zip from working its way open, which it's probably not going to do, but it's good to have as fail safe. And it also doubles up as a point where you can connect your quilt it's like part of the quilt lock system if you want to add an extra Sea to Summit down quilt over the top of your bag to increase that comfort temp rating or that overall warmth. So inside the sleeping bag as well, we have got a little storage pouch. Now it's a relatively sizable pouch given that it's inside a sleeping bag, but you wouldn't be able to put something like a quite large smartphone in there. Like for example, my Pixel 7 I don't think would fit in there, and that's quite a big phone. So just bear that one in mind. And on the inside of the zips here, we've also got a bit of a rigid sort of backing. Now that's going to be on the back and on the front section of the zip as well. And that's going to just make sure that when you're doing your zips up and down, that bit of rigidity there prevents any fabric from getting caught in the zip. Now on the zips, I did mention before the free flow zip system. So we have on the left-hand side of the bag, as you're laying in it, this half-length zip. Now that comes with 2 zip sliders as well. The top one here has got this zip plow on it, and that's the same on both sides. And that just allows the zip to move freely up and down, the slider, sorry, to move freely up and down the zip without having to worry too much about tensioning or material getting caught or the zip teeth twisting or anything like that. So moving down to the bottom of the bag, we've got our foot box zipper, and that's going to have 2 sliders on it as well. Now the top slider is hidden up underneath this side zip here, which we can open up. So you can either, as you see me just before, pull it out with our little piece of paracord toggle here, or you can open it up a little bit to get that slider out. And that just allows you to open up the foot box independently from the rest of the sleeping bag. And then we've got our full length side zip on the right hand side that runs up all the way along the edge of the bag, again with a double slider, with the top one having this little zip plow attachment to it. Now, being a women's specific bag, the free flow zip system also allows you to zip couple up with a unisex model. So whether it be the Standard Ascent or the Trek or the Spark even, with the full length zipper on the Spark you want. It just allows you to fully open up the zip like so, and then connect this into the zip slider on the unisex bag that you want to join up with. Now it does, the zip coupling system does work between a unisex bag and a women's specific bag only, purely because of the orientation of the zips. On the women's, it's on the right hand side, and on the unisex bags, it's on the left hand side. Now, I mentioned before, we've got a regular bag here. Now, I'm about 170 centimeters tall, so I'm right on the cusp of whether or not I should fit in the bag. So this would be a really good test to determine whether or not, if you are on the cusp like me, you'll need to go up to a regular bag, or if you'll need to go up to a long bag, or if you can get away with a regular. Getting into this regular at 170 is admittedly a bit of a squeeze. I can feel, if I keep my toes flexed, they're not really touching, it's not quite touching the end of the bag, but as soon as I sort of relax my feet a little bit, I can feel my toes sort of pushing into the end of the bag there. And I would I would potentially be concerned about how much compression of that down is happening, because, you know, as you move around in your sleep and potentially you're moving your legs a bit and your feet and things like that, it does feel like a bit of a snug fit. And I can also feel that the top of the hood on my head here, my head is really touching I can feel the bag is really stretched to its sort of maximum length. So I think for me personally, if I was to get a bag, I would move up to the long size, being 170 tall, just because I do sort of value that little bit of extra room as well. In terms of the shape of the bag and like the width and everything, I've got my hands down beside my body, sort of at a relaxed state. I've got a bit of room to sort of move my hands in and out. I've got room to put my arms up and move them around my body. If I want to sort of turn on my side, I can definitely do that without any issues. It does feel a little bit like that hood space is a little bit small, and I'm just wondering whether or not, because generally the bag feels a bit cramped at that 170 height, the long version or the long bag would give me a little bit more sort of room up here. But I can still easily reach my zip sliders and my adjustment points here, which I will sort of pull them in and really cinch this hood up, like so. So with that hood cinched, I can feel the shape of that scalloped baffle sort of fitting around my neck, but it's tucking in on either side to cover my shoulders. So that air gap is really well covered. I don't sort of feel like there's any cold air getting in through the top here. And so from here, what we can actually do is open up the zips and get our arms out. And those press studs at the top still allow for the sleeping bag to stay together over the top of your shoulders there. So if you wanted to be reading a book or sitting up, even having a cup of tea, or, you know, just sitting up in your tent, wherever you are, just having a chat with your mates, but you still want to stay warm, you can also cinch across here, which is really going to pull that in and keep that cold air around from escaping around your neck. And then we've also got the option as well to reach down here and release the foot box zip, and that's going to give us an opportunity to get our feet out. There we go. And that allows for me to, if I wanted to, I could get up and shuffle my way around if I needed to, potentially if I'm in, say, like I'm doing a multi-day trek and I'm in a bunkhouse, for example. Or if I'm quite warm but I don't want to open up the top of the bag, I can just undo this foot box zip, and that's going to allow a bit of airflow and help with temperature regulation. And the other option we have here, of course, is if we want to half fold the bag down. So if I undo these press studs up the top here like so, then I can fold this top half of the bag down, take off my hood, so I've still got it wrapped around me. I've got my zip done up to the side, but with our half zip on this side down and this zip down sort of partially half of the way, I can sit up here and still stay nice and toasty warm. So that's about it for the size and comfort test, and also the free flow zip system. I'm going to jump out and show you how to stuff it away in your compression sack. So in terms of the compression sack that will come with your sleeping bag, the size will depend on the model that you've got. So your -1 sleeping bag will come with a small compression sack. That's going to be around about 10 litres. That compresses down to about 6.8, whereas your -9 sleeping bag is going to come with a large compression sack. That's going to be around about 20 litre capacity, compressing down to around about 10.9. Now, in terms of the actual pack size of the bag, it's going to be different depending on the individual person. Obviously, when you're packing away your sleeping bag, you can do it potentially in a hurry. Maybe you're stuffing it in quite fast versus if you're taking your time where you're getting like smaller handfuls of the bag and you're sort of slowly stuffing it in and really working the air out. So I'm just sort of working my way around here and stuffing the bag in, really sort of punching down, trying to push as much air out of the bag as I can. So as you can see there, I have got quite a fair amount more room left in the stuff sack. Now, I haven't put in a huge amount of care in terms of stuffing this in the sense that I haven't really gone carefully with smaller handfuls. I could definitely get this down a lot smaller. We're still going to run through these compression straps like so. We'll just sort of work our way around with the bag carefully. So as you can see, there's still a fair amount of air still left in there. Now, you also might have noticed that the compression sack has got a bit of an interesting shape. So traditionally, your compression sack is going to be more of a rounder shape, whereas Summit Ascent have made a really clever choice here to make it more of an oval shape, which means that when packing in the bottom of your pack, it's going to be a little bit wider and flatter, which is a lot more efficient for the space that you've got. So that is the -9 in the regular size. The long's probably going to be a little bit bigger than this, but compared to this classic 1 litre Nalgene, you can see that given the fact that it's a -9 bag, it's packing down quite well, especially considering that it could even get a bit smaller than this. That's about it for the Ascent Women's Down Sleeping Bag from Summit. You can get this at snowies.com.au at our low prices every day.